Good evening and welcome to Look North. Apologies for the late start tonight. We are experiencing some technical difficulties. So let's begin then with our top story, and it's money that was promised to level up our region by improving living standards and creating opportunities and growth. But a report from the Public Accounts Committee today has found that out of £10.5 billion of levelling up funding nationally, just 10% has actually been spent and is making a difference on the ground. In Yorkshire, the government has allocated nearly £1.6 billion for investments in projects such as improving transport, education and broadband. But many of those projects haven't even been started. Well, in Stocksbridge, they were awarded just over £24 million to fund 10 projects in the town. But as Coram Weekly now reports, many of those have been paused or scrapped altogether.
Stocksbridge in South Yorkshire is really a tale of two town centres. There's the popular Fox Valley Retail Park, a major investment in 2016, but above it, the area around the main road is clearly in need of a boost. Stocksbridge was awarded £24 million from the government's town fund, and almost everyone's got a view on what's needed most.
When I used to live up here, there was a community centre, and obviously we went there as teenagers. You hung out, you know what I mean. You know, your parents knew where you were. Now, the children have got nowhere to go.
Bus service, it's absolute rubbish. It is. I mean, we used to have a connecting bus that took us to the tram. That's gone now. On a Sunday, we've got service every 2 hours, if we're lucky.
They don't need any more shops than what's in the valley. All they need is more housing.
The original 10 projects have been scaled back due to rising costs. Now, £20 million will be spent on demolishing the library building to make way for a new library, community centre, office space and classrooms. And nearby, money will also be spent on improving shop facades. Other projects, like a hydrotherapy pool at the leisure centre, have been shelved.
We've been in limbo for about 5 years. The government announced the scheme in September 2019. And we'd already got plans underway for a hydrotherapy. We'd costed it out. Yeah, it's devastating news that it's not going to go ahead.
Do you feel that what is planned at the moment for the centre of Stocksbridge is offering value for money?
No, I think concentrating it in the one building, it's, for me, I don't think it's the right project. But I stand to be convinced, and I hope I'm wrong.
The Town Deal Board, who are managing the plans, say they've had no choice but to revise their original ambition.
Since COVID, I think inflation has been a big problem. And of course, inflation has been even greater in the construction sector. There was a lot of shortage of materials over COVID. Prices went up. Inflation is a mathematical certainty. So, of course, 24 million just is not worth as much as it was 5 years ago. That's just a fact.
The board say other projects will be on hold until they know exactly how much the town centre plan will cost and whether there'll be any cash left over. But critics say that's not good enough.
People here deserve the best. We ought to be really ambitious for communities in Stocksbridge and right across our constituency. And I think they are feeling that their ambitions and needs maybe haven't been fully met yet. And we have to get to a point where they are on board with that journey and they do feel that what's being delivered is what they want.
For me, lessons need to be learnt from this. There's so much bureaucracy. It goes from central government, civil servants at central government, local government, civil servants at local government. But local people know best what's needed in their area.
The planning application has been submitted for the library redevelopment. Its backers insist, despite the setbacks, the work will still be a major step forward for the town. Coram Weekly, BBC Look North, Stocksbridge.
Well, James is with us now. James, does this mean the levelling up policy has been a failure?
Oh, well, it's certainly not ideal for the government to go into an election, whenever that election might be, with their flagship policy being having such criticism. And the criticism is very strong. The chair of the committee saying it's absolutely astounding that there's been those delays. Some of that first money that was given to places should have been spent by now, and we should be seeing that. The government will say, of course, that buildings don't get built overnight. But it also turns out that 55 councils applied for funding and applied for bids when they weren't even eligible, and the committee saying that's not acceptable. I spoke to Olivia Blake, who's part of the committee that put this together, and this is what she said.
It should be much more clearer right through the process of what money local authorities should be bidding for, because this has a real cost. Every bid costs around £30,000 to a local authority, so having 55 councils who are bidding for money and not having any chance of ever being able to get that money is just unacceptable.
So, James, what are the government saying?
Well, the government say they're proud of the 15 billion that they've allocated to and that these projects take time, but people will ultimately make up their mind at the general election. Do they feel like they've been levelled up?
Yeah, James, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much. Next tonight, a man accused of the murder of PC Sharon Beshineski has told the court he's never been to the travel agents where the murder took place. Pirandita Khan is alleged to have planned the robbery of Universal Express travel agents in Bradford in 2005, where the West Yorkshire police officer was fatally shot. He's pleaded guilty to robbery but denies murder and possession of a firearm. David Rhodes has been in court for us today.
PC Beshineski died instantly in 2005 after she was shot dead outside a travel agent in Bradford, responding to calls that an armed robbery was taking place. Leeds Crown Court has already heard that Mr Khan was not one of the three men who actually took part in the robbery. However, it is alleged that he was pivotal to the planning of the robbery and that he knew loaded weapons were going to be used. Appearing for the first time today in the witness dock, dressed in a blue tracksuit and speaking with the aid of an interpreter, he was asked by Defence Counsel whether he had ever been to the address of the travel agents in Bradford. He said simply, never. And jurors were told that last year Mr Khan pleaded guilty to a charge of robbery in relation to the incident that took place in 2005. However, Mr Khan denies a charge of murder and 4 firearm-related offences. The trial continues. David Rhodes, BBC Look North, Leeds.
A woman and 2 teenage boys have appeared in court charged with murdering a man in Sheffield. Sakat Ali, who was 24, was found with stab wounds in Ponderosa Park in Netherthorpe in the early hours of last Saturday morning. 24-year-old Rebecca Moore and the boys, aged 16 and 17, were remanded into custody to appear before Sheffield Crown Court on Monday. A man from Rotherham has been jailed for 2.5 years for stealing priceless antique silverware from a military museum. Graham Gallen drilled through a display case at the Royal Lancers and Nottinghamshire Yeomanry Museum near Worksop in October. His DNA was found on a silver cup, which he was not able to squeeze through the gap in the floor. Now, a charity in Sheffield says refugees are being put at risk of homelessness within weeks of arriving here in what should be a safe place for them. Late last year, the government announced it would be closing many hotels to asylum seekers. The charity City of Sanctuary says that means people are being evicted from hotels for 28 days and need to find an income and a place to live within that time. Mark Ansell has more.
The City of Sanctuary charity offers a warm welcome to people from abroad who want to call Sheffield their home. Asylum seekers are not allowed to work and are put in basic accommodation, including hotels. The City of Sanctuary charity thinks there are more than 40 refugees in the city who are homeless, because if they're given the right to live here, they only have a month to sort an income and somewhere to live.
Even if they find an accommodation, people will be asking for deposit. So they don't have the money to provide for that one. And the reference letters, asylum seekers getting a reference from people to support their application is an impossible task. So it makes them push them to street homelessness, to hidden homelessness, to modern day slavery.
Issam was given refugee status last October. He would have been homeless if it wasn't for the generosity of people he met volunteering here who put him up temporarily.
You're put in a state of limbo and stasis for almost 2 years, and then you're chucked right into the deep end and expected to do everything. I know there's a housing crisis. I know there's no support whatsoever. So everybody around here celebrate when they get that leave to remain, but I realize I must have celebrated a fraction of a second before I realized, no, I need to be on my A game. I need to get the housing. I need to sort out my situation. I cannot rely on them to provide me with anything.
Omid also volunteers here. He's from Iran and lived in a hotel for 5 months before he was given leave to remain. He says it was far from glamorous.
If I'm telling some people, they're going to see that. They say, that is easy, it is a hotel, but not what you are thinking. The hotel is like a jail for the people. Being an asylum seeker, being granted as a refugee, give that more time about finding themselves. I know they've been granted as a refugee, they already have 1 month's notice, and that is not enough at all.
The Home Office says new refugees are given support and advice through Migrant Help on how to access universal credit, employment opportunities and where to get assistance with housing. Sheffield City Council says it helps fund charities like City of Sanctuary and has also raised concerns with the Home Office about the 28-day timeframe because it puts the council under significant pressure to find suitable housing. To help with the problem, the charity's asking people with spare rooms in Sheffield to consider offering a short-term place for newly granted refugees, so that the UK's first City of Sanctuary can live up to the title. Mark Ansell, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
Yes, let's hope there's some help out there. Now we're on to sport, and Oggy is in Wakefield live for us tonight. Oggy, it's all yours.
The beginning of the new championship season tonight here, Wakefield Trinity against Bradford Bulls, a 7,000 plus crowd expected. A scenario fit for Super League really, but it's not. The revitalisation of Wakefield Trinity has been done by this man, Matt Ellis. Congratulations so far. What about the future from now, Matt, at Wakefield?
Yeah, well, tonight's the start. You know, we're aiming to get back in Super League. Hopefully get a good night tonight, full house, good atmosphere. You know, we're heading back to Super League.
And the rest of the ground, that looks shiny behind you, the main stand, but can you do that elsewhere here on the other side?
Yeah, we've got to get a stadium here fit for Super League. You know, let's try and get, you know, City of Wakefield should be having 10,000 people watching rugby league. You know, we're one of the original members. You know, we've had a great history. We need to get that back. We need to get a bit of colour on, you know, a bit of colour back on the walls with the pictures of the Challenge Cup wins and stuff like that.
Good luck with that. Minimum standard then, back in Super League next season or soon, subject to criteria?
Yeah, obviously IMG, we're working on IMG a lot as well. You know, we don't just want to rely on IMG though. We want to, you know, win the championship, go up as good champions, and yeah, IMG is going to be massive for us as well. We've got big improvements on the ground, and you know, we're hitting it at all angles.
What you need first is a good team on the field. Congratulations on all you've done so far here to revitalise Wakefield Trinity, Matt, and keep up the good work. Mind you, Bradford Bulls would say exactly the same, no doubt, and it's a very Yorkshire-centric championship, to say nothing of Sheffield Eagles, who start tonight at home to Toulouse. Still time to get down to the Olympic Legacy Park if you fancy that. Elsewhere in Rugby League this weekend, the Women's Challenge Cup starts. Bradford Bulls against Warrington at Odsall on Sunday. Bulls captain Ellen Strafford particularly grateful to be back on the field after recovering from a serious injury. She's been telling Sally Hurst all about it.
Just over 2 years ago now, I had a pretty serious injury in a pre-season friendly. I was paralysed down my left side for 9 hours. Luckily for me, that came back. It was a long road to recovery, but the backroom staff, the coaches, the girls all got me there, all got me to where I needed to be, and now I'm back playing, so I'm happy.
How special is it for you to be here today after overcoming that injury?
I look back and I just think it's a long road, and it's where every girl wants to be, back playing, and to be here today wearing the Bulls badge, knowing that I've had that journey to get here today, it is an honour.
And what was it that made you so determined to get back on the pitch?
I just love playing the game, being part of a team, being in that environment. It's a massive release as well from just life in general. So I knew I just had to be back there. One of the first questions I got asked, even though I couldn't feel half my body, was, are you going to go back playing? I was like, yeah. And having that mentality of I want to get back and I want to play is what kept me going.
Great story. Great to see Ellen back to full strength. Watch out for Leeds, York, Huddersfield and other women's teams in the Challenge Cup this weekend. And good luck to Chesterfield as well, Amanda. In the next week, surely they'll secure automatic promotion back to the Football League. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Oggy. A busy weekend ahead. Now, you may remember the story of Dr. Will Hummocky. He's a researcher from Leeds University who spent the past few months in the Antarctic, no less. He's been on board the research ship, the RRS Sir David Attenborough, looking at the impact of climate change. Well, he's back home now and in the studio for us in just a moment. But before we speak to him, here's a reminder of what he's been seeing.
It feels like we're reaching a cul-de-sac, a sort of dead end in the ice, but the STA is steaming forward towards what you could, I'm probably not pointing to behind me, it's called the gullet, a narrow gap which is going to help us take a bit of a shortcut basically on our way south to Rotherham. And it's amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. What a privilege to go somewhere like that where most of us will only ever see on the television.
It was extraordinary, both for the science we achieved and for the lifelong memories that have been made. It's an extraordinary voyage, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the purpose behind the trip.
So the reason we've gone to Antarctica was to understand where humanity's carbon is going. We know we're putting it in the atmosphere, and it's where carbon is stored, which affects our climate. And it's the cold seas around Antarctica which are so important for absorbing a lot of that carbon. So we went there to understand the processes controlling that uptake of carbon and to learn more about why that region matters so much for our climate.
And what can we do with that kind of information once it comes back and you start to look into it?
Well, we've made a number of firsts on this trip. We've collected samples from parts of the Weddell Sea, this cold sea around Antarctica, for the very first time further south than we have previously. And those samples will help us understand the processes which are pulling carbon into the spirit of the ocean and how those processes play out in our future climate projections using the sort of computer models that you use here, I'm sure, to predict the weather. They're still used to understand what our climate will look like in the future as well. And we hope to make them even better than they already are.
Yeah, we still have a lot to learn, don't we? Just tell me a little bit about what the conditions were like while you were there.
It's summer in Antarctica, or it has been summer in Antarctica, so it's a little bit
relative.
like... it's all relative. So a summer's day in Antarctica is a bit like a winter's day in the UK. The only difference is that we have huge amounts of daylight. So the nights were maybe 4 hours long while we were there. Beautiful, low light and pink skies to enjoy. But the air temperature is anywhere from 0 to -7 degrees. The water is really chilled, about nearly -2. So when you're handling the water, it's freezing deck, it's freezing on your hands, it's freezing in the bottles. It's a cold working environment, and in the wind that can feel very cold too. But we're well dressed and we're well equipped on the ship to keep warm.
But it must be so exciting to be at the cutting edge of this kind of information that you're finding.
It is extraordinary. I mean, you forget that there are parts of the planet that we just haven't visited, and there are things we just don't know. So making observations for the first time of their kind is a real joy and a privilege, and many of us were really excited to achieve as much as we did, more than we anticipated.
And tell us about the wildlife. I have to ask you about those penguins.
We saw more wildlife than we expected, and the lovely thing about the emperor penguin is that it's totally uninhibited by humans. It's curious, and when we were working on the ice floes, we had emperor penguins come and wander up to our equipment and have a look and observe, and yeah, they're just as curious as we are.
Wonderful, completely fascinating. Well, do keep in touch with your findings. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, this weekend is the Sheffield Adventure Film Festival, and our action-packed queen is in Sheffield for us this evening. Abby, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm at Sheffield Cathedral, a bit grander than your usual cinema. The audience are watching a film about Italian barefoot running. There'll be loads of adventure and action films all this weekend. Earlier, I spoke to organiser Matt down in the crypt.
You come down in here and it's this amazing space. You put on a set of silent disco headphones, a really immersive experience. You get to watch 6 films, and at the end of the loop, then you leave and someone else comes in, and it runs all evening on Friday and all day on Saturday.
And you've got a big screen upstairs. What kind of films can people see?
Okay, so that's the nave upstairs, and that seats more like 200 people, 300 people. We sold out a few sessions tomorrow for that. And that's the main event, really. We've got nearly 40 films showing over the weekend. So tonight we start off with a run film session. Each session's about an hour and a half. So the run films, followed by wild swimming and water films. Then tomorrow we start off at midday with young adventurers. So loads of families in for that. Then we go into spiritual adventure films. Then we have bike films, then climb and mountain films, and we finish off with Made in Sheffield films.
And a lot of those films are made locally. Natasha, you made a film that involved climbing a mountain.
Yep, my film Freya follows a family of 4, a mum and dad, a 9-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. And it's from the girl's perspective, and she's autistic, and it explores how she uses rock climbing to push her own boundaries.
That must have been really difficult, trying to make a film and climb at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, but I enjoy that. I work well under pressure, and it's actually a pleasure to go to those beautiful landscapes and climb those amazing rocks.
Looks fantastic, doesn't it? Now we're on to the weather prospects. I shall leave you with the pain of watching me trying to do a whole programme without an auto cue.
I think you've done very well indeed.
No
Amanda.
reading glasses, Keely, so apologies.
She's done better than you think. Very, very well
Let
indeed.
me pass to the professional.
Thank you very much. More professional than last night, hopefully. The weekend weather doesn't look too bad, actually. Yes, we've got some rain in the forecast, but we've also got a good deal of dry and bright weather. A chilly start to the day tomorrow, but we should have some sunshine gradually through the afternoon, though it will cloud over with some rain by the evening. And it's this weather system which will continue to bring spells of rain tracking eastwards overnight into Sunday. Sunday it brightens up with a few showers, very mild for Sunday and for Monday as well. So we have had a little bit of rain today, a few showers, and actually in the last few hours we've seen this patchy rain sink southwards, so cloudy and damp for some of us out there this evening. But these conditions should move away and it should develop into a fine night. Dry, with long clear spells, a little bit of patchy mist and fog in places, and it looks like a chilly night as well, with temperatures down to around 1 or 2 degrees, so a touch of frost. Let's have a quick look at those high water times, 8:38 in Bridlington and 8:28 in Filey. So we start the day tomorrow on a chilly note. Any mist and fog will lift. It looks like a pleasant morning with some spells of sunshine, just gradually more cloud encroaching from the southwest. And then through the afternoon, it will cloud over. This band of rain starting to arrive later on in the afternoon, tracking eastwards through tomorrow evening. Temperatures tomorrow getting up to 11 or 12 degrees. Rain overnight into Sunday, a murky, damp start to Sunday, but brightening up and certainly feeling mild. Amanda.
Oh, some mild weather would be wonderful. Thank you very much, Keely. That's it from us. Hopefully we'll sort out those gremlins and we'll be back with you for the late news at 10:25. Good night.